This could be the biggest decision the Oklahoma City Thunder have to make in the upcoming free agency in 2024. What up? It's Bryson Akins here with another Thunder Digest video. Before we get into all this, I just want to mention this real quick. We have a sub goal of 500 by the end of the week. We're currently at 463. I think we can crush that goal very easily. But like I mentioned before in multiple videos, if you enjoy the content and you keep on coming back, hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to support the channel. And now we'll go ahead and get into it. There's a bunch of stuff that the Thunder need to do in the offseason and in free agency. We've talked about it before, how they really need a defensive big. And so we've talked about the names such as Nicholas Claxton and maybe even Isaiah Hartenstein coming onto the team to fill in that role. Then also try to get a three-point shooting guard in the draft. But there is a huge question lingering for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it's possibly the biggest decision this offseason for the team. And it's the player Isaiah Joe. He has one more year left on his contract. He does. He has one more year, but after that, we know he's going to want to get a bag because he's been playing great, and he could potentially be a starter for some teams instead of a 6th or 7th man like he is for the Thunder right now. And even Bleacher Report had that as they had the Oklahoma City Thunder with Isaiah Joe and his team option, the biggest decision that we have to make this season. And here's what they had to say about it. Isaiah Joe won't be a free agent if the Oklahoma City Thunder want to keep him under extreme cost control at roughly $2.2 million for another year. But the lack of alternative selections forces my hand because I have no desire to pretend Gordon Hayward's free agency is a priority, and this is an actual decision that Executive Vice President and General Manager Sam Presti must weigh. Repressing Joe's salary for another season has its advantages, most notably maximizing what should be north of $27 million in cap space, but declining his team option now turns free agency into less of an issue. And it's interesting to think of it that way, as there are some options in the free agent market this year, but there are also going to be quite a few in next year's free agent class as well, with names such as Giannis Antetokounmpo and some other big names there. But this year you have guys like potentially LeBron James, who has a player option, James Harden, who will be an unrestricted free agent, Nicholas Claxton, a few of those other big name guys that could really make an impact for some teams depending on what either the team does or what they do with their contract. And Isaiah Joe was one of those guys who isn't really making headlines, especially when he will become a free agent, whether that's this year when the Thunder try to get him to do another contract, when that's an extension of like $10 million or so, or if it's keeping him under this team option this year. And they had to say this in the article about it. Going this route allows the Thunder to re-sign Joe using early bird rights and offer him a starting salary up to 105% of the league's average before tapping into cap space. In exchange for giving him a raise 1 year earlier, the 24-year-old would presumably table talks with other teams and potentially not cost as much as he would in 2025. This feels like the smartest path, especially when Joe's initial cap hold would be so low that Oklahoma City can reserve its overall free agency spacing power, and particularly when it could save the team money on an annual basis as Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams come up for new deals. And that is a big thing to keep in mind, as Josh Giddey will have to be under a new contract as well, the same time Isaiah Joe would be if we put him on this new team option here. They would be going into free agency together, and Josh Giddey would be expected to get a little bit of a raise as well, along with Isaiah Joe. And so it could be hard to try to keep both of them. And I kind of have to agree with what Bleacher Report's saying in this article. If we want to keep Joe, instead of extending his team option, and we want to keep him and keep this core that we have with Giddey, Chet, and J-Dub, what we have to do is make him a free agent now and get him on a cheaper deal, especially if he booms like he does and how he's been progressing lately. In the next season, he could really cost upwards of $15 and maybe even $20 million per year, and that could really make a final decision for us whether it's Joe or Giddey that we keep. And that is a tough decision to make for General Manager Sam Presti. And this also goes into the next topic that we have here for this little video now today. Is Isaiah Joe worth the dough? All right, that's the biggest question. Is he worth all this money that he could potentially be making at the moment when you look at stats, how he plays, how he fits in with the team, his size, his physicality, what he does on the court? You have to look on, is he really worth all this money? Because there are some guys out there that teams will pay upwards of $20 million for, but yet they're not really worth that money to other teams. They're only worth half that. And so it really comes down to how much is Isaiah Joe really worth, not to the Thunder, but to the entirety of the league. And I think he is. When you look at his stats this year, when you look at his size, shooting guard, 6'3", 165 pounds. He's a little bit smaller, comes from Arkansas. He's 24 years of age. So he's young. He has room for growth. He averaged off the bench this year 8.2 points per game, 2.3 rebounds, 1.3 assists, and 45% from the field. And he was also shooting it quite lights out from behind the arc as well. And so he's this deadly shooter. He is an offensive player, and we know that. We don't have him for his defense. We don't have him for his rebounding, his passing. We have him for his lights out offense that he brings to the court day in and night out off the bench. He leads the bench in points, I'm pretty sure. But that's what makes him so valuable, is he has instant electricity off the bench. There are games when I've seen him off the bench score upwards of 15, 18, even 21 points coming off the bench. And that is huge to have a guy like that on the bench for your team. I know I'm saying on the bench a lot right now. I really need to stop that. But it's just how crucial he is to his team. He's not a starter with the squad that we have right now. Sure, there are days he'll go in a starting role when one of our guys like SGA, Josh Giddey, Dub, Dort need a day or two off, and you'll go into that role, him or Aaron Wiggins. But they switch off so much as well. And Isaiah Joe, like I mentioned, he is the best offensive option we have off the bench. He is. He's this offensive specialist, and you can kind of see it with his progression as well throughout the years. When you look here with Philadelphia, the first 2 years, averaging respectively 3.7 and 3.6, not much improvement at all. But then you see, as soon as he came to OKC, 9.5 points per game, instant production there. Now, granted, he was playing more minutes in OKC than Philadelphia by quite a bit, but it is nice to see that level of a jump from Isaiah Joe. And then also dropped down a little bit, but that's because of all the offensive weapons that we have on the squad this year, such as 8.2 points per game right now. When you look at who's on the bench, such as Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, J. Will, Kenrick, even Gordon Hayward for a little bit there. You see, we have offensive weapons loaded there that he doesn't have to feel like the guy when he comes into the game having to score all these points. Even when he's in the starting lineup, he knows he doesn't have to score everything. He knows he can kind of sit back and let someone else take over the show instead of when he's on the bench coming in for this bench squad. He doesn't have to feel like this guy going all out all the time. He knows he has other options that will bail him out. And you can kind of see that with his assist numbers, 1.2 and 1.3 respectively. Not the greatest, but we do know he's not the best. He's not really a passer. I was about to say not the best. He passes. He just doesn't pass it all the time. Rebounds-wise, not bad at all, 2.4, 2.3. Steals, defensively, solid, 0.7, 0.6. Doesn't foul a lot, and he doesn't turn the ball over, which is huge. It is huge, and he's shooting at an efficient rate as well. As you saw this season with his previous stats I had up there, 45% from the field. And so in my eyes, I think he is worth the money. I think it is worth not taking the team option, but going ahead and extending him to what would probably be a $12 million contract, 12 to 15 million, which I think is worth it. And it also allows us to go get another guy on the free agent market, such as a Hartenstein or someone else when we really need a big. And we also have that draft pick that I talked about in the last video that could turn into someone, whether it's a guard or if we try to target a big and trade down a little bit for that. And so there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing in the offseason, but this is one of the moves that kind of dictates how the Thunder's offseason is going to go. Are we going to go ahead and extend Isaiah Joe on that team option, or are we going to cut that loose and try and risk him going to another team, but yet extending his contract so he can stay here for a few more years and also keep our core that we have in Giddey, Chet, and J-Dub? Since we already have Dort signed to a little bit of an extension, SGA signed a max extension not too long ago. And so that's going to be the key difference maker, the biggest decision that really decides what the Thunder are going to do in this offseason. But that's all I got for this video. Like I mentioned before, if you stayed all the way to the end and you enjoyed this content, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the channel and stay up to date when a new video drops. I'm Bryson Akins here on Thunder Digest, and we'll catch you in the next video.